Which stool do you want? You want this stool? You want this stool?
No,
you can have that stool.
No, I thought about it.
You want that stool?
I prayed about it.
You know, as somebody who grew up Presbyterian and then became non-denominational for the last decade and a half of my life, you and York are the two people that make me think about being Baptist. You know, can I get a little amen for that? Oh man, how awesome to hear from Jaclyn today. Can we just get another round of applause for Jaclyn? Thank you. Deeply thought-provoking, simultaneously just so deeply encouraging, Jaclyn, and that's something I appreciate. Really quickly, and we're going to put this up on the screen. So Jaclyn's book just went up for pre-order.
It did.
Just went up for pre-order. All in good fun, the Theology of Fun. Scan that QR code and you can pre-order it. Now, Jaclyn, I've heard you talk about your book at Lux, at NCMS a little bit last year.
Jeez.
What you talked about this morning is adjacent,
yes,
but not identical.
No.
So give us just a little idea of what you wrote about and a little bit of the heart behind it. And I don't know, maybe you feel comfortable talking because I read the previous last chapter of your book. And so, which I suspect will be something more in the future. Yeah. Maybe you can even shed a little light on that for us of like, where do you see it going beyond what you've written here?
Yeah. So as far as what to expect in this particular book, what you've heard today is me bouncing along the top of, this is a stone bouncing along the top of a lake. If you'd like to go deeper on any of these points, then this is the book for you. For instance, I didn't go into a lot of depth today about where fun goes wrong, because it does. Fun happens in a lot of ways that it shouldn't. There's a whole chapter on that. I talk more about, there's a whole chapter on how to make your life more fun. Because whatever circumstances you're in, you can make your life more fun, depending on how you approach it. And then I also have a chapter on how to make other people's lives more fun, both individually, with the particular people whose lives intersect yours, and also systemically. So if any of this resonated with you, and you think, gosh, I'd like another 2,000 words on that, that's the book for you. So yes.
There you go. Yeah, awesome. I wanted to touch on, because you got practical here at the end, and we're going to open up to questions. You have questions for Jaclyn. We have time for that. So I'll come to that in a second, but I'm going to ask mine first because I have the microphone. And so you sort of touched on this here at the end as you got landing the plane, getting a little practical. How can we actually do this? Let me ask you, for you, how do you practically recognize the fun that's been given to allow you to have the life that you have, the flow that's been given to allow you to, like, is it a thing where, man, you wake up every morning and you're just like, you like touch the bed sheets and you're like, this was someone had so much flow when they made these sheets. Yes. Like, what is that? But how do you like practically, it's one thing to say, hey, let's like hypothetically think about this. It's another thing to like practically orient that into your life when you wake up without caffeine and you already have a headache and you have to brush your teeth before you can go downstairs. Like, that's my life exactly, but go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of like one of the key ways to make your life more fun is to focus on what gift you're giving. For instance, in my work, I work in the nonprofit sphere and I do a lot of marketing. And so I've worked for missionary organizations and seminaries. And so my day-to-day work is very separated from the stuff that feels the most meaningful. When I get to hear missionaries talk about the amazing experiences they've had on the field, I didn't experience that. When I hear our seminary graduates talk about the amazing ministries that they're a part of as a result of their training at our seminary, I'm a part of that, but I'm really far removed from it. I don't go do revivals. I don't, witness to people in the street every day. I work at a desk, and I look at a lot of spreadsheets. And so what has actually helped me in my daily work, whether it's the work at the desk with the spreadsheets, or whether it's like doing the dishes or cleaning the house, which I definitely do.
Totally.
I try and turn my attention to who is this going to bless? Not benefit, bless. Who are the particular people I know whose lives will be made better by the work I do here today? It changes how I do dishes when I'm doing them because I want to make life better for my husband. It changes how I fill out my spreadsheets and how I write my marketing plans and how I spend my advertising dollars when I'm actually not thinking about this big grand plan of God's great kingdom, but whenever I'm thinking about, I really care about our vice president for enrollment. And if I can get us another 100 students through my work, his life is going to be measurably better. He's going to go home with lower blood pressure. And so finding the people in your immediate sphere who your work, paid, unpaid, volunteer, in the home, out of the home, your work is a gift to, and do it as a gift to them. Think about how doing something as a gift transforms it. Cleaning the house, I hate it. Cleaning the house, cleaning my mom's house as a surprise for her birthday, completely different experience because my focus is on the good gift I'm giving. So that is one of the ways I've found very helpful to find more fun in my labor, in my work. And again, finding more receiving fun, a lot of it really is attention. We go through life very quickly. And in a way, we eat very fast. We drink very fast. Don't even pay attention to how stuff tastes. But I actually had a moment about a year ago where it was a Saturday. My son was with his grandparents, so I had the whole afternoon to do nothing but sit on the couch, eat ice cream, and watch The Mandalorian. And I was very excited. This is the way. But I've been writing this book, and so I sit down on the couch with, my Ben & Jerry's and my spoon and the laptop. 'Cause I don't have a TV, I have a laptop. Millennials. And so, but I had this moment of, wait, who made this ice cream? Like, this comes from a factory in Vermont somewhere. Like, actual people made this. And I bought it from Kroger, and I don't even know the names of the people who work at Kroger. Who made The Mandalorian? I'll never meet Pedro Pascal. Hundreds of people worked to make this 45 minutes that I just get to sit here and enjoy. And I had to put the ice cream back in the freezer and just take a minute because I did find myself overwhelmed once I just started giving my attention to the things I enjoy and thinking of them not just as things I enjoy, but as good gifts from someone. And so a lot of it is your intent, your focus when you're giving, but also your attention when you're receiving, with whatever that is.
Awesome. Thank you, Jaclyn. Okay, questions for Jaclyn? Anybody got something? Jeff in the back. Jeff. Yeah, so Jeff asked, I'm wired to be strategic. I'm wired for the servile arts. I'm wired for flow.
Yeah.
Right? So how do I just swallowed spit down my throat in a weird place. And so the question was, like, how do I maintain this sense of joy and fun, even in a world of strategy, even when it, for the kingdom?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's one of the things I talk about in the first couple chapters is the categories of servile and liberal. They are distinct, but they're porous in that something can float in between them over time. There are things I enjoy today as a liberal art that 20 years ago I absolutely hated, like exercise. So a servile art that you do because you want lower blood pressure and, health can become a liberal art over time. And in the same way, there are liberal arts that do a servile service. Like you said, you really enjoy strategy. You enjoy the challenge of overcoming, how do I make things happen in a way? You definitely don't need to feel guilty about that. Just because something you enjoy is profitable doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a bonus. And so that is ideally how things work is both, yes, this is useful, and that makes me happy, but it's also enjoyable, and that also makes me happy. And so there are things in our lives that fall very clearly into servile, liberal, but our lived experience is a lot more like this. And that's not a bad thing, because results are good. It's whenever all we care about are results that it drains the fun out of our lives. It's a very good thing that you like strategy and hard work and figuring out how to solve problems. You were wired for that. That's what you're supposed to do. And so it's both enjoyable for you because the actual process is enjoyable, and it's also enjoyable because it's satisfying to see good results from your work. It's okay that those mix and meld. That's the experience.
I think that every person in this room that's been a streamer or a creator or a YouTuber knows that experience, right? You grew up playing video games. It was simply a liberal art. And then you're like, maybe I can make an income off of this. And it became a completely different thing. And it can completely drain and suck all of the fun and enjoyment out of what you were doing. And it can completely burn you out. This is what most people experience when they take their passion and try to make it their profession, right? It's like, hey, I really love going to nerd conventions, right? I love going to, but now I'm going to all of them if I work for LTN and I feel really burnt out by them, right? I go to all of them. Or, hey, I loved music and I did music as a passion growing up and I just love to sit in my room and listen to music and play guitar. And now I'm a worship leader or I've studied music theory and I'm now trying to understand the science behind it. And and it's now my job and I'm paid for it. It's a really hard thing when something that was a liberal art turns into a servile art, and it can be hard to continue to find the fun in those things, which I think is all of us have probably experienced to one degree or another.
When people see how well I bake, they immediately say, "Have you thought about opening a bakery?" And I take that as a compliment because it means I'm good at it. But I also recognize that as we have a baseline assumption that if you're good at something, you should make a profit off of it.
That doesn't necessarily follow.
You can, and you might, and that might work for you financially and with regards to mental, emotional, and spiritual health. But it might not, and it doesn't have to.
Yeah. I could dig into that a whole bunch, but I'm not going to because we're going to ask other questions, Greg. Oh, okay. So the question was, what do you do when you have a lot of fun with your work, but you don't always necessarily feel like you're working, right? This concept of, hey, if you work doing what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? Yeah.
So I have a clarifying question. When you say I don't feel like I'm working, what does feeling like you're working feel like? Like, because I'm thinking like that could mean it's like you feel, because you could mean I feel like I'm under challenged. Like I enjoy this so much, it's not really pushing me. Or I'm enjoying this, I'm having a good time, but I'm not really seeing results. Like when you say I don't feel like I'm working, what does that mean to you?
So what I'm hearing there and what Greg said is like at the end of the month after I'm done with work, if it's something that I enjoy and it's fun to me, I don't feel exerted or exhausted. Whereas if I'm doing something, and really what I'm hearing is the world puts a lot of pressure on you to do something that you don't enjoy doing so that you can get the feeling of being exerted, exhausted, or burnt out at the end of it. And if you don't feel exerted, exhausted, or burnt out, you should feel guilty.
So I'm learning this actually with working out right now. I love working out. I love lifting weights and high intensity interval training, but my body is starting to say no. And so I've started doing a lot more like stretching and dynamic exercises. And I've had to shift my perspective on what counts as a workout. Because there was a time when I would say that an hour of yoga, that's not a workout. It's a workout at this altitude, by the way. And so part of that might be shifting your expectations of, I don't need to feel drained. It's okay that I get to the end of a workout and I'm not dripping sweat, starting to black out a little bit, and heaving terrible breaths. That never happens all the time. So recognizing that expectation that you should feel that strained, that's not a bad thing. You're not being lazy. The other thing is to celebrate the fact that you don't feel negatively drained. And the third thing I would suggest is if you do get to the end of your week, of your month, and you're finding that there's reserves of energy unspent, maybe that's an opportunity to explore, is there another avenue through which I could be giving? Paid, unpaid, volunteer, whatever. That I have leftover energy at the end of the week. Awesome. What can I do with that? That's the three things I would say. If that's helpful.
Yeah, and when you have kids, you don't ever have leftover. Just always drawing on that tank of E. Do you have a question?
Yes. It does. Makes perfect sense. Do you want to restate that for this dream?
No, you do.
If I'm hearing you correctly, you're asking, for a long time, you can point to a lot of really great Christian liberal art. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, the Renaissance, etc. But that today, Christians are not known for having amazing art. In fact, we're a bit of a punchline. The Christian art is bad. Christian movies are bad. And I think you're absolutely right that part of the reason much of faith-based media, as it were, is not good art because it's not liberal arts, it's a servile art. The question that those particular creators were asking was not, how do I make something beautiful? It was, how do I make something that has a desired effect? As a marketing professional, that's marketing. When I sit down to write ad copy or to design advertising campaigns or to write social media content, I'm not doing liberal arts work. I'm not just creating something beautiful on our Facebook page. I'm creating something with the intent of it having a desired effect. It's not necessarily bad. That's not art. That's marketing. Art is about making something beautiful because something beautiful is worth making. Art for art's sake, if you will. Oscar Wilde said a lot of things that are true. One of them is that he said, all art is useless, which I thought was really insulting when I read it as like a 19-year-old. Now, I think what he's meaning there is that art is not meant to be put to use. It's not meant to be put to service. It's valuable just being. And so I think you are right that a lot of times faith-based media is not as good as it could be because we as Christians go into it with the question of how do I squeeze profit out of this? Not monetary, but spiritual, but still profit. Instead of asking, how do I make something good? Tolkien and Lewis weren't thinking about they wanted to make something good. And so they did.
Good. So the question really is, in a world that defines fun very differently than maybe what we as Christians would define fun, how do we engage in the world around us without crossing a line or just clearly not being fun? And just for the record, our church, we can't really play Jackbox together. So at least not with their pastor. Does not work. Go ahead.
I'll riff on that later. That's very fair. And you're also talking about an added layer of complexity because it's not just something that you're doing with your friends around the table. You're doing it on the internet for everyone to see. And I don't need to give you examples. There are good things you can do that you don't need to do on the internet for everyone to see. Certain board games might be that. We don't stream my D&D game because reasons. And so in the terms of like both not just riding the line of what am I doing just for fun for myself, but also how am I having fun in a creative way by making content for other people, it can be a bummer, but sometimes it's just knowing some boundaries of like, that is fun. I enjoy that with my friends and my family. I'm not going to do that online in front of the internet. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that thing X is wrong for everyone, everywhere, all the time. It's just not best for me right now. And I've found for a lot of stuff like that, reframing so many things from this is wrong and no one should ever do it to this is not best for me right now, set me free in a lot of ways because it took a lot of the pressure off of making the best decision for everyone everywhere, instead just making a right decision for me right here, right now. If that's helpful?
Hey, can we give it up and just thank Jaclyn for coming and speaking?